You guys have been asking me for months to do a full brewing video. Sorry it took so long. Here we go. All of this stuff that you're looking at is stuff that was given to me from a friend. And he is not a beer brewer, but wanted to brew beer. And he got online and bought 3 or 4 of these Brewer's Best kits, and they're extract kits. A few of them use dry malt, some of them use liquid malt, and they all have these little tiny mini mashes, these little mini steeps that go with them. He quickly found out that it's not something you just do in your kitchen like making a cheese sandwich, that it requires a lot of extra equipment and know-how, and figured out really quickly that he was not going to brew them. So he gave them to me because he knew I was a brewer. What I've got to do is sift through this stuff and figure out what I've got here and see if I want to use it. It looks like I've got all the stuff for a Belgian here. There's golden candy syrup, and there is a Saison yeast, so a Belgian would not be out of the question. There's some Vienna malt. These are pre-mixed for kit beers, so this is crushed chocolate and crushed caramel. That looks like it might have been a Scottish. We got flaked wheat and crushed caramel, crushed cherry smoked malt, and crushed roasted barley malt. That sounds really good. And crushed C20. So, here's more. There's a spice pack. That's bitter orange peels. Okay, so I've got everything here to do something Belgian-y. Something Saison-ish. I think I'm going to do that. Okie doke. I have designed a recipe here based on the ingredients that I've got, and I'm pretty sure I can do something close to a Belgian dark strong. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use 10 pounds of Canadian 2-row malt as my base malt, and then I'm going to add a pound of this Crystal 120. I've got 2 pounds of it here in this bag, but we're just going to use a pound of it. We're going to use this pound of Vienna malt that was with the kits, and we're going to use that little pack of cherry smoked malt and roasted malt also in the mash. So our mash is going to be 10, 11, 12, almost 12 and a half pound mash. We're going to boil it for 90 minutes, I've decided, just to bring out the flavor of all these malts, and since it is going to be a strong ale. So we're going to do a 90-minute boil, and we'll add an ounce of Tettnang hops at 60 minutes for bittering. It's not going to be a very bitter beer, so I'm using a low alpha hop for that. And then right at the end, with 10 minutes left, I'm going to put in a half an ounce of Brewer's Gold, and then at flame out I'm going to put in an ounce of Hallertau. That's out of style for this beer, but I'm just going to do it because that's what I want, and it's my beer. And it's going to taste great. The candy sugar we'll add at 5 minutes, and the orange peel we'll add at 5 minutes left in the boil too. And that should take care of all of the real Belgian-y, delicious candy and fruit flavors that you get from a beer like that. We'll mash at 150 or as close as we can get, and then I'm going to do one large batch sparge, and the batch is going to be somewhere between 170 and 175 degrees. And I think we're going to have ourselves a decent little strong ale. So let's get started. These are the kit malts, so they are pre-crushed, pre-milled, if you will. This is the 120, the Crystal 120, which, man, I love the way Crystal 120 tastes. It makes such delicious beer. Now, technically, I should be using a pound of Special B for a Belgian instead of 120, but the thing is, I don't have any, and this tastes really good, so I'm just going to use it. We can take these, go ahead and put them in the mash tun, which is ready. Into the grain mill we go. Here's 1 pound of Crystal 120. Now let's get our 10 pounds of 2-row. and 10 pounds. All right, that's 11 pounds of grain. That churro is great. Right on. That's a good bunch of barley right there. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna heat up our mash water. And I think I know about how hot it needs to be, but we're gonna do a few quick calculations just to make sure I hit my mash temperature of 150 degrees. All right, the temperature of the grain looks like it's gonna settle down at about 92.7 degrees. Oh, I'm gonna get a little bit cooler. Anyway, we're looking at about 92.5 degrees. We'll see what that works out to. And the grain's just so hot just because it was sitting in the garage all day and it was 107 today. Okay, let's calculate our strike temperature. Let's just say 12.25 pounds of grain. Our volume of water is 5.5 gallons. Our desired mash temperature is 150 degrees. I think that's going to work best for this beer. All right, the current grain temperature worked out to 92.6. That was the final verdict on grain temperature. So we need a strike water temperature of 156.3 degrees to hit a 150 degree mash. We're shooting for 156.3. We're at I hope I didn't overshoot it. We're at 151. We're at 150. Okay, we're good. We're at 151.2. So just a few more degrees, and we will be there. I'm going to get ready to shut this thing down. Give her a stir. Make sure we don't have any dough balls down there. That's what you don't want. Anytime you're doing a mash with this much grain, you run the chance of having those dough balls, especially down at the bottom. This feels good. This feels real good. I think we're going to be just fine. All right, I'm going to keep stirring it, and once I get it fully intermingled, we'll take a mash temperature and see if I hit my 150 degrees. Let's see where we ended up here. I'm afraid I might have overshot it just a little bit. Undershooting it would be better than overshooting it with a beer like this because it'll make more alcohol and have a little bit less body at a lower. Look at that, 149.6, 7, 8. Come on, 150. Come on, 150. Come on, one more tenth of a degree. All right, we'll call it 149.9. I missed my mash temperature by 1/10 of 1 degree. I am the freaking man. So far, so good, boys and girls. That needs to mash for 1 hour, and I'll probably give it a stir about halfway through. And after that, we will start running off our wort and doing our sparge. Time to do our first runnings of wort from the mash tun to the boil kettle. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a first running of wort. By the way, it's called wort at this point. It's not called beer yet. You don't call it beer until you inoculate it with yeast. So you'll hear me call it beer or wort, but just keep in mind there's kind of a difference there. We'll run most of it out, and then I think I'm going to recirculate it back into the mash and let it run through the grain bed again. And once that is done, we will heat up our sparge water and do one big batch sparge. I think that'll give us pretty good efficiency and flavor, and it'll give us a good volume for a 90-minute boil. So let's do that. Brewing beer is mainly about math and scrubbing and cleaning stuff. So if you don't like math and you don't like scrubbing and cleaning stuff, don't try to brew beer because you'll be miserable, and what you end up brewing will taste like hobo feet. I'll just run this sparge really slowly. It's really hot, and I should have a pretty good volume to start the boil with. Oh, that's a beautiful boil. Look at that. We're making beer, boys and girls. All right, time for the first hop addition. 1 ounce of Tettnang. 10 minutes left, it's time for the Brewer's Gold. 5 minutes left in the boil, it's time to add the orange peel and paradise seeds. Let's add that in. And the candy syrup, which tastes delicious, by the way. And you go. Yeah, you like that. All right, finally, the flame is out. We're going to put in 1 ounce of Hallertau, 2 half-ounce packets. Man, that was a long boil. On a hot night, in a hot garage, in Texas, in summer. You gotta really love beer to do this. That. Stir that in, and just let it sit for a little while. And then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna start chilling this down and transferring it once it's cool enough into the fermenter. I'm not gonna film all that. I'm risking an extremely long video at this point. I know that most YouTube users have the attention span of a 5-year-old, according to my analytics. So I'm going to skip all that, and the next thing you will be seeing is fermentation. Next day, and fermentation is underway. Everything's looking pretty good. Airlock's getting more and more vigorous as we go here. We're nowhere near peak fermentation. We're about 63 degrees in the chamber right now. It's going between 63 and 65. I think I'm just going to leave it here, let it ferment, and when we're done fermenting, I'll let you know what it tastes like. Okay guys, it's about a week later. The beer on the right is the Belgian, and it is almost completely done fermenting. I am going to leave it in that fermenter. I'm not going to rack it. I'm going to leave it on that yeast cake for about another week, and then I'm going to keg it. I think that'll be the best thing for it flavor-wise. I have not had a chance to taste it yet. It's still fermenting a little bit, and plus, as you may have noticed, I've brewed another beer in the meantime, which is fermenting very vigorously at this point. Until it's done fermenting and I can kind of move it around or maybe rack it to another vessel and dry hop it, haven't made those decisions yet. Until I get to that point, the Belgian's just going to sit there, and it could sit there for another week, which will just make it taste better. So that's where we are right now. I guess the next thing you guys will see is racking and kegging of the beer. Okay guys, it's been 5 or 6 days later. I didn't quite wait a week. I'm gonna go ahead and keg these beers. I've come to that decision. The Belgian on the right I think is just about ready to keg. I'm having some trouble clarifying the British Pale Ale on the left, and I think the main reason for that is I did a huge yeast pitch on a yeast that doesn't attenuate terribly well. It tastes really good, so it may just end up being a cloudy beer. If that's the case, that's fine. The cold crashing effect of putting them in the keg, putting them on pressure and getting them down to 36 or 37 degrees should do a pretty good job of clarifying them over the next week as they carbonate. We shall see. So right now I've got sanitizer in the kegs. I need to run that out and get my siphoning equipment ready, and then we will keg this beer. Alright, so we've got ourselves a good siphon going. One thing I haven't really touched on thus far in this video is talking about sanitation. Everything that touches the beer post-boil needs to be sanitized. Specifically, and more especially, post-boil and pre-completion of the fermentation. You need to use a sanitizer. I use iodophor sanitizer and I use Star San sanitizer. One's iodine-based, one's acid-based. And so this hose, siphoning hose that's siphoning the beer right now, has been sanitized. The kegs have been sanitized. The tops of the kegs have been sanitized. The lines, everything. It's not as big a deal after the beer is done fermenting because there's a lot of alcohol to keep things from getting infected as far as what makes the beer taste bad, but generally speaking, just sanitize everything past that point. All right, we're going to fill these kegs up, put them in the kegerator, get some pressure on them, and then another week or so, we'll be ready to drink this beer. Let you guys see what's left of these. Just some Trub and a pretty nice yeast cake. This is the Belgian. This beer, I can already tell, is exceptionally good. I cannot wait to drink it. I can't wait for another week to pass to where the beer matures a little bit more and it's fully carbonated. It's really, really, really good. Just wanted to show you guys really quickly here how I do my initial carbonation. I put 40 psi on both of the kegs. There's 40 psi going to the two of them, and that will nucleate into the beer pretty quickly, and then I'll crank it down to about 11 pounds. All right, see you guys in a week and we'll drink these bastards. Well, congratulations guys, you made it to the end of the video, and here are the beers. This is the Belgian, and it turned out really, really good. Not as much of a dark strong as I had originally planned. It's more of a darker farmhouse type Belgian, but it tastes really, really good, and I have no complaints. If I can replicate this recipe outside of using those sort of leftover hodgepodge kit ingredients, I would definitely consider doing it again. Cheers. Oh yeah, I could drink that all day, and I probably will. The pale ale is still pretty cloudy, but not a problem. I think it'll continue to clarify over the next week or two, assuming it lasts that long. I won't be entering it in competition, so I'm not overly concerned with clarity. And actually, I used no clarifiers in either of these beers. It has a tendency to rob the beer of flavor and complexity that it would have already had, so if I'm not entering a beer in competition, or if I'm not entering a beer that is judged on clarity, I normally will not use clarifiers. I really just like the natural feel of this type of a homebrew. And the taste as well. There's a special reward that comes from doing this. It's hard to articulate. If you watch this channel normally, or if you're a regular subscriber, you probably watch it because you're into my motorcycle videos and motorcycle adventures. You probably ride motorcycles yourself, or you want to, and you know that reward, that satisfaction that you get from riding a motorcycle really can't be articulated. It's the same way with beer, and if you're watching this video because you searched for homebrewing videos, you probably know what I'm talking about too, just in a different way. It's an inarticulable reward. It's part science, it's part art, it's part cooking, it's a lot of scrubbing and cleaning, but in the end, you create something that is 100% your own, that is extremely enjoyable to consume, and also something that's delicious to share with friends. And friends and family, those are the things that make life worth living. That's what it's all about. Anyway, guys, I just want to close by saying thank you for watching the video. I know it was kind of long, but I encourage you to learn how to brew your own beer if you're interested in this. It takes some know-how, it takes some practice. Your first session or two may not go that well. Lord knows mine didn't. But in the long run, it pays off, and it's spice of life. This sort of thing is very, very enjoyable. Speaking of spice of life and things that are enjoyable, we will be going back to motorcycle videos after this episode, and if you want to see more brewing stuff, let me know. I do a lot more stuff than just things related to motorcycles, as many of you well know, and I'm happy to make videos about that if I surmise that there is adequate interest for it. So until next time, you guys have a great one. God bless you. We'll see you next time. Happy brewing, safe riding, and all that kind of stuff. See you on the next episode.